Good morning and welcome to The Point. It is Wednesday, May 12th, 2021. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channel 7, 11 and 20. Good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9 and all the folks joining us on Party Grenada and Go to FET Facebook pages. It's a pleasure to have you tuning in to us this morning. My virtual guest is the Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Shawn. Good morning, Doc. How are you? On mute. There we go.
Good morning. I am doing well. I hope you are the same.
I believe so. Last I checked, I was doing good. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Doc. This morning, before we get into what has been the prevalent issue over the past year, aka COVID-19, let's first start with one of the latest advisories that I've seen from the Ministry of Health in relation to the concern about flu-like symptoms or the flu going around in our mostly schools and workplaces. What's the current status, or what can you tell us about what you've been seeing over the past few weeks?
Well, particularly over the past 3 weeks, we have noted a dramatic rise in the number of cases of, we classify them as acute respiratory infection, or what we know the cold or the flu. Generally, the flu is a little more serious, and it's generally reserved for cases of influenza. So we have noticed that there is a cold that is circulating, and the number of cases are rapidly rising, right? So the week before, week 17, well, let's start week 16, we had 26 cases. Then week 17, we noticed we had 46 cases. And then week 18, we noticed 133 cases. Right, so you see the trajectory that this is taking. Now, I know that many persons out there can relate to this, because there are many parents now who have to stay home because their children cannot go to school. Right, there are many employees who have to stay home because they have flu-like symptoms. There are many schools that were affected, where the majority of students had flu-like illness, and they've had to, classes as normal could not continue. This is worrying. This is worrying because I can tell you last year at this time we had 21 cases. 21 cases. Last year at this time, 21 cases. And this year, 133. So that should give you an idea. Now, what must also be noted is that those that are reported are the individuals who got sick enough to go seek medical care and be recorded in the system, right? So it is an indication, but it is not the real figure, because there are many other persons who had just a little cold and so on, nothing too bad, and they did not go seek medical care, and they are not counted among the 133 that we're seeing right now. All right, so it's a worrying picture. It's a worrying picture because it means that we have dropped the ball, all right? We are no longer taking the precautions that we did last year. We are not wearing masks. We are not sanitizing. We are congregating. We are moving about as normal. So we give these viruses easy room to travel from person to person and to make persons sick. Now, mind you, this is the exact same way in which COVID spreads, right? It is the exact same way. So let us assume that it was a COVID case. Right now, many families would be in serious problems. right? Many persons would be in serious, serious problems because we have dropped our guard, right? And that is what this is. That is what this is. This disease is a signal for our population. It is a signal that, listen, we are on the wrong, right? As I said yesterday in another press briefing, if just one case escapes us, one case, could be someone who enters illegally, could be someone who falls sick long after they clear quarantine. If just one escapes us, a similar picture to what is happening with this, with these acute respiratory infections, with this cold that is circulating, a similar picture is going to develop where the disease spreads rapidly from person to person. But the difference is that COVID is very serious. Our health services will soon be overwhelmed by people who get so sick that they can't breathe on their own and they require support, they require oxygen, they require maybe even being intubated and put on ventilators. All right, so that is what is worrying about what we are seeing.
What efforts are being made to help curb the spread of the respiratory illness that we're seeing, the acute respiratory infection that we're seeing?
All right, so thankfully we've been testing since we noted the increase. We've been testing, and the tests have been returning negative for COVID. But what everyone needs to recognize is that the same measures that we were recommending, the same measures that are in our protocols, are those that are required to control this present outbreak that we're having. So persons are encouraged to return to the mask, wear them when you are in public, right? To sanitize, because there are two ways in which this is transmitted. It's transmitted by respiratory droplets that are released when persons cough or sneeze or talk or laugh, all right? So wearing the mask will prevent those droplets from going into the air, and it will also limit the number of these droplets that you take into your mouth and your nose. We also recommend that persons sanitize, because one of the other ways of getting infected is when persons rub their eyes, their nose, or their mouth with their contaminated hands. So we ask persons to wash your hands or sanitize with an alcohol-based sanitizer if soap and water, clean water are not immediately available. We also are asking persons to avoid, if you can avoid something, you should do it. Avoid all settings where there are many, many persons in small, confined areas. So you're in close contact with others. Now, there are some where you cannot avoid. You cannot avoid that on public transportation. However, you could wear a mask. You could keep your mask on, wear it properly in public transportation, keep your hands clean, and avoid disease transmission. But all those other settings where it is not necessary for you to be congregating in close contact with persons, just sit down and sitting there chatting or doing whatever, avoid those settings, because those are the settings where disease spread from person to person.
We're seeing it mostly in our schools and our workplaces. What are some of the symptoms that, I know it's flu-like symptoms, but is there a point where we should seek medical attention, or we should wait, or once we start to sneeze or cough, find yourself to a health center or doctor?
All right. So yes, we are seeing a lot of cases among children, and we are seeing in workplaces, because of course these are places where people congregate. All right. If someone is sick, thankfully, most cases are mild, and of short duration. So many persons do not need to seek medical care. They isolate themselves, drink lots of fluids, rest, and just allow the disease to run its course. But I should mention the symptoms. The symptoms include runny nose, congestion, fever, cough, headache. Some persons feel tired, and so on. And of course, anyone who experiences very strong or very severe symptoms should seek medical attention, especially if it is accompanied by any kind of difficulty breathing, a high fever that persists for 2-3 days and doesn't seem to be going anywhere. All of these chest pains. These individuals should seek medical attention, but of course, ensure that you are wearing your mask so that you don't infect others. You are properly sanitizing, right? We all need to partner in this effort if we are to get past this.
We have a population that likes to self-medicate. And considering the symptoms of the flu or the respiratory illness is similar to that of COVID-19, how cautious should we be in getting tested? Should we rest assured that we haven't been exposed, so self-isolate at home, or once you start seeing the symptoms, get tested? What should be the protocol here?
All right. So, that is a very good point, because the thing is, when there are widespread outbreaks like this, it is not possible. So we sometimes limit our testing to those who are more symptomatic or who are more severe, right? When there are only a few cases of respiratory disease, we try to test as many of them as possible. When there's a lot, we try to test a representative sample. So in every district, we might say, okay, in every clinic, we'll pick 5 persons to test based on the number, or maybe in every parish, or we would select persons, a number of persons to test, so that we know, it gives us a sense as to what is circulating. So we have been testing, we have been doing PCR testing for persons who present to our clinics. So far, the COVID tests have been negative, but we have identified rhinovirus as a potential cause, and rhinovirus is like the most common cause of the common cold.
Okay, first time I hear the rhinovirus?
Yes, rhinovirus.
Okay, but it's a usual virus.
Yeah, this is the most frequent cause of the common cold.
All right, just checking. Thought there was something else, new on the market. Before we move on to COVID-19, a question on Facebook. Somebody's asking, have you considered that an increase in respiratory illnesses could have been as a result of the polluted atmosphere recently with the Sahara dust and or the volcanic ash from St. Vincent?
Well, the thing is, you would have expected that those cases would be occurring nearer to that event. For example, the eruption in Soufrière was what was it, about 3-4 weeks ago or so?
More than that, the 9th, I think. The last supposed to be eruption was the 22nd. Yeah. Right,
and Grenada experienced very minimal disruption due to ash. We did not have a lot of ash or so here. And yes, at that time, there was increased Sahara dust and so on in the atmosphere. So you would expect that it was around that time when we were impacted by the dirt, by the ash and the dirt, we would see the cases. However, it is happening now. Secondly, the ash and the dirt would result would provoke more persons, for example, who have conditions like asthma and other respiratory allergies and so on. So you would expect persons to come down with more allergic respiratory symptoms as opposed to infectious symptoms, which include fever and sore throat and those others. So the clinical picture is different with the two conditions.
All right, now let's go to COVID-19. The latest dashboard as 4 p.m. yesterday showed that Grenada has 0 active cases of COVID-19. However, I know the push right now and the concern is that of vaccination. And in yesterday's post-cabinet briefing, Minister Steele sent out what I call a warning that the current stock of vaccines are soon to expire, and that may put people in jeopardy who are thinking of getting vaccinated. What's the latest date that somebody can get their first shot before the vaccine or before the batch expires?
All right, so you see, one of the factors that we have to bear in mind is that all of the vaccines that come on the market have an expiry date. COVID-19 vaccines have a 6-month expiry date. That's it. From production, it's the manufacturer gives up to 6 months for it to be consumed. All right, or else it should not be used. Now, from manufacturer, from the point of where it's manufactured to being shipped to landing in your country, takes about 3 months. So when the vaccines land here, I mean, we have about 3 months or so, if we're lucky, to administer all that we have. That is just one of the realities of the logistics of vaccination against COVID-19. So the present stock of vaccines that we have, it's around June 27th. That is the date. So once June 27th reaches, if we don't receive further batches of vaccines, then, we are. Now, the thing is, these vaccines are very expensive, right? They're very expensive. And with the current level of vaccine hesitancy that we are observing, it is a real hard decision that we face going forward. Because one, if we are unable to use the vaccines that we are allotted by through the COVAX facility, those vaccines would be prioritized for countries where the citizens are accepting them. So we will not be, on the list to receive more vaccines ahead of those countries. If we experience an outbreak and then persons finally are convinced that it's time they should take the vaccine, there may not be vaccines for them. All right, there may not be vaccines for them. So these are just factors that we have to balance. Now, the other thing that we need to balance is, given the high demand for vaccines, because remember, vaccination is a priority for every country in the world. This is not a situation that is unique to Grenada. It is a priority for every country. Those countries that have the resources, they are encouraging all the citizens to be vaccinated. They have spent billions of dollars procuring vaccines, and they are making it available to their citizens. Those countries that do not have resources, they are clamoring for equity and equal distribution and fairness in the availability of vaccines. We are fortunate in that we were able to get access to vaccines pretty early and make it available to our population. All right, so it is our priority, just like everyone else, to ensure that all our citizens are vaccinated. But there are many, many factors that we must consider, that will affect our ability to vaccinate our population going forward. Persons should take advantage of what we have now and not wait for an outbreak and then, beat down the doors of the Ministry of Health, because it is not easy to get access to vaccines at present due to the extremely high demand worldwide.
In addition to, having to fight the bigger countries for supply, would it affect, let's say everybody else gets their supply, would the fact that we have vaccines that may expire, let's say the vaccines expire, it's not used before it expires, would that affect countries' willingness to contribute further to our vaccination program?
Of course it will. Why would a country send vaccines to us? And by doing so, they are probably leaving some of their citizens without access to that vaccine. Why should they send vaccines to us only to have it sit and expire when they could have administered it to their population, or to give it to another country who need it even more? There are countries that have not gotten a single dose of vaccines, even up to this point, and hiring for vaccines. So we have to recognize as well that we are in a kind of privileged position where we can sit down and say, no, I don't want, because there are many, many others who simply don't have access.
There's a good question on the WhatsApp. Somebody on WhatsApp is asking, in the event that the vaccines are about to expire, is there a possibility that the ministry, or has the ministry considered giving the unused vaccines to countries that may need it, example Trinidad, before it expires?
Right, that is actively being considered. We are looking at the projection with regards to the number of doses that we have. And a few weeks before that expiry date, reach decision, listen, if any of our neighbors need it, we are projected based on the number of vaccines that we're giving right now. The projection is we only need maybe 200 or 300. So we will take all of the remainder and send them to one of our neighbors who need it.
All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to ask some more of the questions on the social media and the telephone. This is To The Point with Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Shawn Charles. To The Point, we'll be right back.
Do you hear what I hear? Listen to the ocean, and you will hear a cry for help. The ocean is hurting, and we are the source of the hurt. But we can stop and start to heal our ocean by preventing pollution from getting into our waterways. It can start with you. Join an active organization, or better yet, make a personal commitment. Commit not for just one day in the year, but for the rest of your life. Let's dispose of our plastic and other waste responsibly, and let's start building resilience. Let the healing begin.
This message is brought to you by the OECS Commission with funding from the Government of Norway. REMLIT, tackling ocean pollution from turf to surf.
Hello everyone, I'm Godfrey Augustine. This is an invitation to join me this Wednesday for Release It as we go live on K105 FM, GBN Television 7 and 11, GBN's Facebook page and GBN's YouTube channel. Our discussion will be on the issue of treating, as cited in the Representation of the People Act of Grenada, Section 89, 1 and 2, which deals with that issue. It is an election offense, and our guest on the program will be Attorney at Law, Cara Shillingford from Dominica, Mr. Ruggles Ferguson from Grenada, and along with me will be Mr. Joseph Lane. Be sure to join us this Wednesday for this special edition of Release It as we deal with the election offense of treating. See you then.
Hey folks, you're invited to tune in to Grenada Music to the World program hosted by Eugene Gittens on Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9, Hot FM 98.5, 98.7, GBN TV and all their social media platforms. The only totally local music program in Grenada, representing all genres of music. So it's Green's Music to the World on Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on GBN with the music icon himself, Mr. Eugene Gittens. See you then.
Welcome back to The Point, speaking with Chief Medical Officer Dr. Shawn Charles. It is at this point in the program we're going to invite viewers and listeners who may have comments, questions, queries, concerns. Now is your chance to ask them. The landline number is 435-2041. That's also the WhatsApp. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. No voice or video calls, no YouTube links, no pictures or other videos, only written messages. And you can continue to post your comments, questions, queries, concerns on the Facebook page and YouTube channel. Before we go to the caller, Dr. Charles, somebody pointed out that you didn't answer about the date, the last date that somebody can get vaccinated, at least their first shot or second shot before it expires. What's the last date for the first shot?
Well, you should or at least the 26th of June.
Okay, 26th of June. Okay, noted. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Yes, morning. Go ahead.
Miss Blossom, you asked the question, you teased me question out of my head.
Okay.
Yeah, let me tell you. No, I was saying, I want to ask, I'm asking, what is the last date? Date batch of vaccine, as you said, would end on the 20-something. Now, do you expect to get a shipment of the second dose, which is necessary for the second dose? If I take my vaccine, let's say today, tomorrow, in the next 2 weeks, in other words, before the date expire, could I guarantee that I would get my second dose, or I would have to take 3 or 4 doses because come back to the first dose again and the second dose? Because if you don't get the second dose, then you wouldn't be able, because all the vaccine would be expired, you would not be able to give the second dose. At the same time, we in Grenada failed to realize that maybe we would have to purchase vaccine at exorbitant price and possible giving the government more problem. So I envisage a lot of us might die. You might be safe because you take your first shot and your second shot, but the population would dwindle because of lack of taking that particular vaccine, the first shot and the second shot, and nobody would give you freeness again, because we depend on freeness in Grenada.
Okay.
We will have to buy, and it is very expensive, as you see. So they putting the government now in trouble, and they putting themselves for them to die and expect people now to help them or help us.
Okay. Thank you very much. Doc?
Well, that is the unfortunate truth, right? If vaccines that were provided to us are left to expire, then it means it will certainly make our attempts to get vaccines in the future more difficult.
And he asked if you can guarantee that the batch that we have, are we getting more to administer the second dose in time?
Well, you see, like I say, that depends on the uptake that we have with this first allotment of vaccines. We still have about 28,000 doses there. Why would anyone send us further doses if we leave 28,000 doses to expire? So like I say, it depends on the uptake from the first allotment.
All right, let me go to WhatsApp. Somebody on WhatsApp is inquiring. WhatsApp, work with me here. Right, somebody on WhatsApp is inquiring. I have made an appointment to receive my vaccine on Friday. That's this Friday. But based on what Minister Steele said yesterday, it seems that if I take the first dose, there is no guarantee that I will be able to get the second dose because of the expiration date that was given and the time frame for the second dose. Now I am considering not taking the first dose because by the time I have to get the second dose, it may not be available. Please shed some light on this issue.
What I would tell that individual is some protection is better than no protection at all, right? If right now everyone were to take that decision, then it means that all of the vaccines that we have right now, we would either have to leave them, let them expire, or send it someplace else. And it means that individuals will be left with zero protection, right? A population would remain with zero protection. Now, if we get very, right, it certainly strengthens our position to get further doses of the vaccine, and your second dose would be assured. Now, a second approach would be, for example, the manufacturer recommends the second dose to be given 4 weeks after the first. Studies after the distribution of the vaccine has shown that the boost that you get in immunity is greatest when you delay the second dose a bit. So you can have your second dose maybe at 6 weeks instead of the 4, or we can give it to you according to manufacturer's recommendation at 4 weeks. It all depends. There are different strategies that we are considering to ensure that we use up the remaining doses that we have. All right. Now, of course, WHO recommends that, because the boost is greatest when it's delayed up to 12 weeks, between 8 to 12 weeks. So most persons now we're giving them between the second dose between 8 to 12 weeks. But certainly after 4 weeks, you can get your second dose as well.
So if she takes it on Friday, God willing, then that's enough time. The time frame that she has to wait for the second dose, it will be within the time frame. It won't expire by the time she...
Yes, because there are about 6 weeks or so between now and time that the vaccines expire. So she can have the second dose according to the manufacturer's recommendation 4 weeks after.
Okay, so WhatsApp, you can get the first dose and be able to get the second before the expiration date. Somebody on Facebook is inquiring, based on Grenada's current COVID-19 status, what can be predicted in terms of CXC exams and graduation?
Well, if the current situation continues, right, and we have no outbreak, if everyone cooperates and we have no outbreaks of disease, then our students, because I always say that adults should work together to create a safe environment in which our students can, work and play. So if we are able to maintain our status as we are right now, our students will be able to sit the CXC exams as normal. They'll be able to have their graduation ceremony as normal, right? However, if we behave irresponsibly and our fortunes change and things get out of hand, then, that will not happen.
Let me go back to the phone lines. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
All right. I just want to ask Dr. Charles a question. I heard him say a while ago there is 28,000 more doses available. I'm just trying to figure out from the 13,000, I think they said people that received the first doses, how many persons again that will able to receive the second doses? So could he give a calculation as to how much person to receive the second doses, and that will give us an average as to how much doses will remain there? If you understand what I'm trying to ask, because this seems to be something very serious.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Doc?
All right. So I hope that the gentleman can do the math, because I'm going to give him the number. I wouldn't be able to do the math while I'm speaking to you. All right. So I hope he has his pencil ready. So we receive two separate allotments of vaccines. One was 23,000 and one was 24,000 doses. All right. So far, we have given 13,744 first doses and 5,775 second doses. So 5,775 individuals are now fully vaccinated. So he can, add the number of doses that were given, both first and second, add the two shipments of vaccines and just do a subtraction, and he will get total number of doses that we have in hand right now.
Okay, I think I'm getting 28,481 left.
Right, I was close to the ballpark.
You were close to the ballpark, and if you take out the, that's a lot.
Yeah,
okay, wait, hold on. 8,000.
Number of doses, because all we are doing is counting number of doses, right?
Roughly about 8,000 people still need to get their second dose, so which would leave roughly 20,000 doses for first and second. So let's say 10,000 people more can get first and second dose. Oh, you're telling me about my maths? So, sorry. So roughly 10,000 people can get their first and second doses based on the current stock. That's from the rough calculation that my very sharp brain can still do. Okay, so let me go back to Facebook. Somebody on Facebook says, we're hearing about the vaccines that are about to expire. The question, can you tell us if all ministers and senators have been vaccinated and why they aren't published and posted, seeing them taking their jabs as we saw them making and wearing face masks and distributing? So do you know if all ministers and senators have been vaccinated?
I don't know. I know a significant number of them have been. It is possible that all have been, but I simply don't have that information. And the thing is, I should ask, because some questions are special. I should ask, what does that have to do with protecting you? All right, because some persons ask some questions, and you can see that there are people who are smarter than us. But my only question is, what does that have to do with you protecting yourself?
Somebody on WhatsApp asks, can someone who has a penicillin allergy take the vaccine?
Yes, the person can take the vaccine because the vaccine does not contain penicillin, right? Only if a person is allergic to a component of the vaccines, that is when it's contraindicated.
And another allergy related, I'm allergic to NSAID. How do I know if the vaccine will affect me?
Well, like I say, the answer is similar to the one before, because the vaccine does not contain any NSAID that I can think of. Only if you are allergic to a component of the vaccine. So if you have, I'm guessing that person is maybe allergic to maybe something like ibuprofen or or something of the sort, or Voltaren or something like that, all right, you can take the vaccine.
Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning to you, Blossom, and all your followers. Good morning to Dr. Charles. First of all, let me once again commend the ministry and its team and for the work that they have done in keeping us safe. But I see that we're at a very critical juncture. Some things I've heard you say this morning are encouraging, but if there's one thing I can add is that I think that in that quest to get people to vaccinate, I think we have been emphasizing too much the negative impacts of not vaccinating as opposed to the positive impact of vaccinating. Fear can be a motivator only thus far. And beyond that, you have to give positive motivation. You spoke of the graduations. Very, very good thing. I think what we need to do is to develop a protocol to show how beneficial it is for people who are vaccinated, how they can benefit, what their families can do, how they can relate to the folks who come from overseas who are vaccinated. Have a clear protocol showing the benefits. You spoke of graduation, another good one. And I think we have to shift. It's a very complicated thing, and some people have good reasons why not, and there is apprehension. But we want and we need as many as possible to take it. So we have to look at different approaches. Sometimes the stick works, but the carrot should never be ignored. And I think what we have to look at moving forward is some positive scenarios, some benefits, some carrots to encourage people, let them see how different things can be if they are vaccinated. And if you emphasize a little bit more on those, I believe we may have a little more success. Okay? That's just one suggestion I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, I love the suggestion. I appreciate the suggestion because let me tell you, the Ministry of Health does not have. You see, we would love if other sectors and other individuals and other persons who are more experienced in PR and all this thing would join us. You know, we would like to partner so that we can convey the message that would reach everyone. All right? We are simply trying to do our best to ensure that persons have enough information to make, a decision to protect their own health. And of course, we would welcome suggestions like this, of a different strategy that we can use to reach the population. And I would like to mention that one of the benefits of being vaccinated is once you are fully vaccinated, now you no longer need to quarantine for the entire 7 days when you return to Grenada, right? On entry, you are quarantined for up to 48 hours only. Once we get your negative test, you are free to exit quarantine. This same protocol is being replicated in many countries across the region. It is the same now in Barbados. It is the same now in St. Vincent. So someone from Grenada now who will be in Barbados to apply for a visa just to come back, you no longer need to quarantine for the full 7 or 14 days if you are fully vaccinated. These are benefits. And these are apart from the benefits of vaccination, which are to protect you from severe disease, hospitalization, and death. Right? And that's why the whole world, and that's what the message is, vaccinate so that we can get back to some degree of normality.
I'm going to put a Facebook and a WhatsApp, Facebook and YouTube question together because they're more along the same lines. The YouTube question is, do you 100% trust the WHO with all they do and say and tell you all in the Ministry of Health to tell the public? And the Facebook question is, there was a question on the WHO. Okay, I'll leave. Yes, this one. Do you completely trust the WHO with the information they tell you?
All right. So the WHO bases its decision on science and evidence. There's a process that is used to come up with health guidelines and important decisions and policy decisions, right? It is based on evidence, all right? So it is not difficult for us to trust the guidelines that are released by the WHO because we know about the processes that are involved in arriving at all of these important decisions. The public may not understand it, but that is why we have these individuals, because the level of expertise that they can gather to come up to a consensus and to arrive at a policy, all right, the level of expertise is not available in many countries, including ours. All right, so we rely on the WHO for those important policy matters. All right, and we trust in the process that they arrive at these decisions. All right, and we are confident in the decisions that they take.
Facebook. Somebody on Facebook asked, do you believe the vaccine is the only solution to slowing the process of the spread of COVID, bearing in mind also the social distance and cleaning surface and hands, the general hygiene? And I will couple that question with another kind of related question. Somebody else on Facebook is asking, you said zero vaccine means zero protection. What happened to washing hands, eating healthy, wearing masks, 6 foot distancing? Are these methods considered useless in the fight against COVID? Are you saying vaccination is the only way to fight the virus?
All right. So it is clear that we sometimes people hear something different. Let me see if I could answer, in a simpler manner. The vaccines will not protect you against COVID. The vaccines will offer protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and death. You still must wear a mask. You still must sanitize. You still must ensure that you are distancing, maintaining distance and, avoiding unnecessary congregation to avoid exposure to COVID-19. Because even if you're sitting next to someone with COVID-19 that coughs in your face and you're breathing the virus will enter your lungs. All right? So you need all those measures to protect yourself from exposure to the disease or to the virus. The vaccine will protect you against severe disease, against hospitalization, against death. All right? I hope I've answered in a way that most persons will understand.
Let me go to a WhatsApp question. Do people whose household is vaccinated and travel with their kids, do they still have to quarantine, and can they quarantine at home? And do children have to do PCR tests on return from vacation from the island, or what tests will they have to get on their return?
All right. So our protocol requires all children over 5 must have a negative PCR to come into Grenada. All right. So once they're over 5, you must have a negative PCR to come into Grenada. This has been our protocol ever since the start of this COVID pandemic. Right now, that PCR is required within 72 hours. Now, adults who are traveling with children are offered the possibility of. This has been that way for quite some time. That will continue. Let's say the adult is vaccinated, the kids are not vaccinated. They will still be offered the option of home quarantine. All right. However, if the children are above 5, then they would follow the unvaccinated protocol, meaning that they're quarantined, they're tested on the 5th day after arrival, and they're released. Right. This has been our protocol for quite some time. The only recent changes that were made are for persons who are fully vaccinated and traveling by themselves. All right. You only quarantine for up to 48 hours.
All right, let me see if I have a caller. No caller. Somebody on WhatsApp is asking, can you clarify if the vaccine used in Grenada is on trial or is it approved? Because I heard on a radio program, not this one, playing clips and is blatantly implying such.
All right, so the vaccine is one of the first 2 to be granted emergency use license by WHO. All of the vaccines that are being used right now were granted emergency use license either in their own countries, all right, or globally by the WHO. All right, so it's not a trial that is occurring right now. Now, of course, as with all medicines, after they complete the 3rd phase of clinical trial and they're approved for sale or for treatment of persons in the public in general, there is something called post-market surveillance, meaning that you continue to monitor all medicines and so on after that initial phase of clinical trial. That is happening with all medicines and vaccines and drugs. All right, it's post-marketing surveillance. It's after it's sent out into the public, you continue to monitor the use and to monitor for any other, adverse effects or otherwise that may occur during routine use in the population.
2 people on WhatsApp are inquiring, if you are on blood thinners, can you still take the vaccine? And a subsequent piece, if so, is it true that you have to stop taking the blood thinner for 3 days prior to taking the vaccine?
Well, that is a decision that a person can make with their healthcare provider because it will depend on the status of whichever disease that they're being treated for. So that is a decision they would have to make with their healthcare provider. But of course, once the benefit outweigh the risk, yes, the vaccination will be recommended for them.
And as we close the vaccination centers, I know there's a pop-up vaccination drive in St. Mark on Friday, but are they at Radisson today or just at the stadium?
No, we are no longer at Radisson. We are at the stadium only.
Okay, so somebody was inquiring.
And persons can also inquire at their local health centers to make arrangements to be vaccinated there, which may be closer to some individuals.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. 30 seconds, final thoughts as we close.
Well, I just want to ask the public to listen. We started this program talking about, we noticed a dramatic rise in acute respiratory infections. And I'm sure that many persons who are listening and viewing us right now can relate to this. There are many persons right now that have the cold. this could have easily been COVID. This could easily be COVID. As easily as you see this cold is spreading from person to person, that is how COVID spreads. But in addition, COVID creates such severe disease in some persons that if it were COVID, our hospitals would be overwhelmed right now with persons who are suffocating. All right? What does this mean? This means that we obviously, over the past few weeks, have let down our guard. We have stopped wearing masks. We have stopped sanitizing. We have been moving around and living as if there is no pandemic. Another warning sign. It means that we need to change course. We need to do something different. All right, and I urge everyone, please return to the protocols, the safety measures that we're recommending. Wear your mask correctly, covering your mouth and your nose when in public. Sanitize. Avoid all unnecessary congregation. You do not need to go to the bar every afternoon after work. You do not need to go and party at this time. This is not the time. There are two, I think they call them bus tours or so, that are going around the island. Extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous scenarios. And the thing is, some of these individuals are attending these very risky activities, and they come in and they're sitting calmly next to you on Monday morning, all right, as if nothing happened. This is a very, very dangerous path that we're on. And the thing is, if we do not change, I fear that something much worse is going to come. So I encourage everyone to, just try and stay safe. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Turn on your TV, look and see what is happening. Do something to ensure that we are all safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and of course, we'll continue to keep in touch.
All right. Okay.
Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Shawn Charles, we thank him so much for being our guest. And thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning in. Before I close, there is somebody insisting in the Facebook comments, what is in the vaccine? That question has been asked of the Ministry of Health officials when they appear here regularly. And they've always said they do not know the exact ingredients off the top of their heads, but you can always check out the website, the WHO website, and other websites for the ingredients of the vaccine. So, Mr. Lane, just Google it, the same internet you're using for Facebook. Google it, the ingredients of the AstraZeneca vaccine or the other vaccines, and you will get the information that you are seeking. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll be back with you tomorrow morning, God willing. The mid-morning buzz is up next.